The Detroit Pistons have been one of the weirder teams in the NBA for me over the past couple of seasons. This previous year, I thought they were going to be a 45 to 50 win team. They disappointed me for a few different reasons. Defensively, they were pretty legit because, having KCP as a strong defensive shooting guard and Stan Van Gundy knowing what he's doing on defense and having a team that I wouldn't say has any awful defenders and they have a couple of guys who can switch, it made sense. But offensively, they were completely out of whack. Reggie Jackson's shoot-first mentality just didn't mesh well with the rest of the team. Reggie Jackson also just wasn't as efficient as he should be. Not the best playmaker in the world. Just not the right fit. They were really better with Ish Smith at the point guard position. So I don't know if Ish Smith is going to end up starting at point guard for them day one. Reggie Jackson is the more talented player, and you would assume that the ceiling with Jackson is higher than Ish Smith, but if the fit's not there, then it's just not there. We're going to have to see what happens with the point guard position. But we got to talk about the two guard, because they recently acquired Avery Bradley, who I would say is an upgrade over KCP. Really on both sides of the floor. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, strong defender in his own right. I think Avery Bradley is just a level higher than that. So you could actually see maybe a little bit of an improvement defensively for them there. He can, of course, defend the better of the guard players on the other team, which gives Reggie Jackson or Ish Smith a breather against the guy who's not as good. And then when we get to the wing positions, I'm going to be honest, I'm a little confused just because I don't know who's definitely going to start at the small forward and power forward positions. I don't know why I refer to the power forward position as a wing spot now, but I guess that's 2018 NBA for you. So I think Tobias Harris is definitely one of the starters, I would have to assume. Pretty legit for Detroit last season as an offensive player. His three-point shooting and overall efficiency was good, and that's a good sign for him given that, that was kind of a question for him throughout his Orlando days. Although, to be fair, he did shoot just a little under league average from three, so he does still have some progress to go there. But the other wing, I don't really know who it is. It could be Stanley Johnson if they want to go with a smaller, more athletic team. And Stanley Johnson's a guy who could give you some pretty damn good defense. And then you're looking at Bradley, Johnson. I think Tobias Harris has gotten better defensively. Helps that he's a big body. That's a defense that has potential to switch among positions pretty well. But Stanley Johnson offensively is one of the worst players in the NBA, given the amount of minutes that he plays, which is about 17 or 18 minutes a game. Nowhere close to being a competent player in terms of efficiency, points per game. His three-pointer showed a little bit of life in his rookie season, but he did not build on that at all in his second year. So, if he's your starting four, that's going to be an avenue for NBA defenses to just leave him wide open all the time. Sure, he might have some potential as like a cutter, and he could be pretty good in transition, but I just don't think offensively he's going to give you much of anything unless he makes some drastic jump in his third year, which, for his sake, I hope he does it, but I don't know. John Lure is interesting. He's definitely not as athletic as Stanley Johnson is. And his three-point shooting was just flat-out disappointing. He shot 29% from there for them this previous year, which is just not good enough to be that floor spacer next to Andre Drummond. Lure has been a good mid-range shooter in the past. It's 2018. I don't really want my power forward shooting mid-range. If you can do it, awesome, but I'd rather you be able to stretch all the way out to the three-point line. So I don't know if he's the perfect fit. If his three-point shooting comes alive, then maybe. But that's a pretty big maybe for him. Do you go with Henry Ellison? He's in his second season? I don't really know much about the guy. For all I know, he could step in and be a big impact player for them. Maybe not even be a guy who has huge production, but someone who just kind of helps out the overall spacing and fit of the team. But if I'm just looking at the team, I'm not seeing the obvious starter at power forward, and that's just not good. Hell, just for the sheer sake of being a shooter, that was kind of a tongue twister. Maybe Anthony Tolliver would start, because at least he's going to actually space the floor for you. Like, the guy has shot basically around, I would say around 37 to 38% from three for the last, 4 seasons, while taking almost 4 threes a game in each year, so I think he's established himself as a shooter. Now, defensively, I wouldn't say he's horrible, but wouldn't rely on him too much either. But at the same time, I do trust Stan Van Gundy to have a good team defense to where they can still be okay there. I don't know, maybe Anthony Tolliver starts and you recognize that he might not be as good as John Lure, but the three-point shooting will just help you out in terms of spacing. It kind of reminds me of Luke Babbitt last season for Miami. Just being a dude who the defense has to respect from outside and just opening the floor up, just giving you more options to do things. Especially when they are hoping that the backbone of their offense is what worked 2 years ago, which was the Reggie Jackson, Andre Drummond pick and roll. I mean, if you're running that and your guys surrounding that are Avery Bradley, Tobias Harris, and Anthony Tolliver, that's actually quite a bit of spacing. Avery Bradley has grown into a very good three-point shooter. If you got Tolliver at the 4, Harris shooting league average from 3, there's an avenue for you to be a successful offensive team that way, and I don't think you lose too much defensively either. I think the big question just goes back to Reggie Jackson. Is he going to be the guy who can make the smart basketball decision? Because I feel like he's not a natural playmaker. He's the type of guy who can make the obvious pass, but he doesn't have the ability to, get a screen up top from Drummond and then, in a matter of a few seconds, read the defense and determine what the best basketball play is. He also sometimes just takes bad shots. I mean, even the year for the Pistons where he was at his best for them, he still only shot 43% from the field. He got to 35% from 3, which is cool, and he got just a nudge over 6 assists a game, so I don't think he's the perfect point guard for them, but he's definitely the best option they have, or at least the most talented one. The problem is that if you go to Ish Smith, Ish can't shoot, so then the Drummond and Ish Smith pick and roll, it could still be something, because Ish is a pretty damn good playmaker, but, defenses can go under the screen and things like that. I should also talk about Andre Drummond, because, he's a pretty important part of this team. I would say he's still the best player. Honestly, I'm not expecting him to take some drastic jump. I've talked about Andre Drummond a few times, how I've said he could be traded if this team is disappointing once again, and that just stems from me not thinking too highly of the guy. He's a great rebounder, he finishes well at the rim, he's athletic, he can catch alley-oops, I get it, but he can't create his own offense, he can't create offense for others, he's terrible from the free throw line. Defensively, I think he's cool, and I think that's the best way to put it with Drummond. He's cool. Offensively, everything I just mentioned, he also gets a lot of offensive rebounds, which is good, but then defensively, you get it. He doesn't excel at any one thing besides rebounding, and if he's your best player, there is a limit on how good you can actually be as a team, but I'm expecting Andre Drummond to be basically the same player. Maybe he can make some drastic impact defensively and elevate himself to a DeAndre Jordan status of center. It's possible, but I don't think it's going to happen. But that's okay. I don't think Drummond is the reason these guys would be bad necessarily. If Drummond wasn't on this team, then they would be a lottery team and it wouldn't even be a conversation in my mind. They would clearly be a team not contending for the playoffs. But I don't think Drummond's the type of guy who can elevate you from the 6th seed to the 2nd seed either. I just don't think he's that good. But that's okay. So again, I think for them, the big question is the point guard spot. I think they have a team that can provide some good spacing. Is Reggie Jackson going to be the right type of point guard for them, make the right basketball plays? And what are they going to get off the second unit? Is Stanley Johnson finally going to be a real player? Is John Lure going to stretch from the three-point line? Things like that.